So those who do not learn history are doomed to repeat it. Okay? But history could be our guide too, right? We can use history as a guide. And a lot of people, whenever I mention that we should impeach Trump for war crimes, a lot of supposed progressives, but I think secretly there's an underlying love for Mein Führer that encapsulates their opinion. But let's use history as a guide. So people want to say, but Pence is going to be worse, and he's going to be so charismatic, and he's going to, get in there, and he's just going to, he's going to, martial law, and anything that Pence could have thought of, Trump has already thought of. I'm not waiting for Trump to be liberal anymore. There's basically 95% of me was sure he was going to be a fucking horrible president. Now, there's virtually no possibility of the tide turning. Is he going to get a single payer of health care? No. Is he going to stop police brutality? No. Is he going to stop the war? Absolutely not. Is he going to stop the war on drugs? The militarization of the police? No. Is he going to, whip out that free child care plan of Ivanka? Are we going to get that? So, him being fucking liberal, fuck that. He is basically, him and Pence are two sides of the same coin. I don't see a big difference, but if you want to see how this thing unravels, let's just go to 1974. Let's go to 1974. Okay, so in 1974, you had Richard Milhouse Nixon. He had just won re-election, right? 1972, 68, and 72. So he beat McGovern by saying he was going to pull out of Vietnam. And then this Watergate scandal, started getting bigger and bigger. Then they asked him for some tapes. He turned in a tape that had 18-minute gap on it. So therefore he's tampering with evidence or obstruction of justice. And in the House of Representatives, they file for impeachment in the Judiciary Committee. And the Judiciary Committee in July, so July 30th, there's like 29th, 30th, there's 3 days at the very end of July, the Judiciary Committee passes 3 articles of impeachment. So they got 3 charges on him: contempt of Congress, abuse of power, and obstruction of justice, I believe. Those are the 3 charges. After he gets those impeachment, so it didn't even go to the House for a vote, just the Judiciary Committee was going to recommend them. So the ball is started. This is mousetrap, right? The ball has been started, but it seems inevitable to Nixon, and instead of going through the trial, getting a conviction, and then getting booted out that way, he just basically wanted to have control over the situation, so he quits, he resigns. So therefore, we actually have had a president where the articles of impeachment kicked him out, removed him from power. It forced him to resign. That's what it did. It forced him to resign. And so that was a victory. That was the point of the impeachment, was to remove him from power. And, Gerald Ford would have got it either way. Gerald Ford is going to be president for 2 years. He's going to lose the election of 76. And then you're going to have 49 seats are taken from the Republican Party that November in 74. Articles of impeachment, Judiciary puts him down the end of July 1974. And then August 9th, 1974 is when Richard Milhouse Nixon resigns, gets Gerald Ford to pardon him the next month after Gerald Ford has become president. And, the American people have not freaked out by that shock. Oh my God, Nixon's not our president anymore. Let's take all of our money out of the banks. And at the end of that year, November, right? So July is the impeachment, the House or the Judiciary Committee. Then August is his resignation. And then July, August, September, October, November. So 3 months after he resigns, the midterm elections was very favorable for the Democratic Party. They took 50 seats, 49 seats away from the Republicans. So it was good. The impeachment proceedings against Nixon was a good thing, because impeachment proceedings were filed against Nixon. It forced him to resign. So just that based on itself, there's two similarities here. So with Trump, he won't be able to be impeached until after the midterm elections, which will be halfway through his presidency. That's the same thing with Nixon, his second term. It was, only 2 years into his second term, and now he's looking at impeachment. So that leaves Gerald Ford to be president for 2 fucking years. But then that'll also leave Mike Pence to be president for 2 fucking years. So that was really bad for Nixon. That was really bad for the Republican Party. For the Republican Party to impeach the president, you got rid of the Republican, you got rid of the, Nixon, and then you swept the midterm elections, and you actually got a veto-proof majority, so you could pass constitutional amendments. You could pass constitutional amendments, and you could override any fucking veto that Gerald Ford would veto. And they had more, they overrode more of Gerald Ford's vetoes than what they did with Andrew Johnson. So the Revolutionary Congress, which impeached Nixon, or is going to impeach Nixon, that got Nixon to resign, also gave Gerald Ford hell. And so Gerald Ford tried to do what he could do in the 2 years that he was in there. He wasn't, great. He wasn't horrible, but he wasn't good enough. He wasn't good enough, and guess what? In 1976, Jimmy Carter becomes the president. Jimmy Carter becomes the fucking president. So if we use Nixon's impeachment and resignation, if we use 1974 as an example of what is going to happen in 2018 and 2019 when the Democrats sweep the midterm elections come November 2018, if we're going to use the example of Nixon, what's going to happen with Donald Trump is this. In the middle of his tenure, he's going to get the impeachment proceedings. He's going to be forced to resign. Now Donald Trump has no power. None. He's got no power anymore. He's been removed from power. Jimmy Dore is going to be crying, oh no, who am I going to make fun of now, right? Kathy Griffin said that Trump is great for comedians, horrible for citizens. Oh, that's fucking great, right? Oh yeah, Trump, he's shitty for the country, but I can make jokes about it and people pay me. Well, good for you and your comedy career, but it seems irresponsible. It seems like you should, fight for the country, make the country better, make America great for the first time. So, what we learn by impeaching Trump, we're going to get a Mike Pence. We're going to get a Revolutionary Congress that's not going to let Pence do jack shit. We're going to make significant gains in the midterm elections. We're going to make significant gains when it comes to Congress. Then by the presidential election 2020, Mike Pence won't be the president. He'll finish Trump's term off, but he won't be the president come 2020 because Jimmy Carter became president. Jimmy Carter, a Democrat. So by impeaching Nixon, that was bad for the Republican Party. They lost the presidency. They lost 50 seats in Congress. They lost a significant amount of power. And ultimately, they lost the presidency. They lost the fucking presidency. So for those people who are saying, but Pence, no, it's not but Pence. This is how you fight. This is resistance. And by trying to impeach him, at least filing for the articles of impeachment, that's exciting. People be paying attention. This is bad PR for the warmongering presidents. Also, the most important part is that we're going to be setting a precedent. We're going to set a precedent. No more fucking war crimes. No more bombing fucking kids. No more invading different countries without a congressional declaration of war. We need clear objectives. And in fact, I was actually looking at that 2001 authorization to use military force. I was reading the language of it. And the language is those who assisted in the 9/11 perpetrators, the 9/11 hijackers, those who were involved with them. So let's just go ahead and we'll say Al-Qaeda. I think there's some debate between Al-Qaeda being CIA born or Al-Qaeda actually being its own thing. I heard Al-Qaeda at one point in time was only 100 people. But let's go with Al-Qaeda. So Al-Qaeda is the people that we're going after in the war on terror. So that means we cannot give Al-Qaeda any weapons and money to fight anybody in Syria. We cannot give these terrorists weapons and money. If we're the ones giving weapons and money to Al-Qaeda, then that would make us the target of the war on terror. The war on terror does not say invade any country, does not say bomb whoever the fuck you want to bomb. The war on terror says we're going to go after the perpetrators of 9/11 and those who helped them. So those who financed them, those who harbored them, right? So mostly Saudi Arabia. We're going to fuck up Saudi Arabia. That's what the American people was like, damn it, 9/11, it was Saudi Arabia. That's the official story. Okay, if you believe the official story, we should be invading Saudi Arabia. That should have been, if that's what we're going to do, invade countries that they were from. Well, 15 of them were from Saudi Arabia. A lot of the public officials, actually, the major officials were the ones that paid for it. Now there's ISIS is doing strikes in Iran, probably because of the money that is going through Saudi Arabia. So Wahhabism and Khalifa, we are supporting the same fucking terrorist that caused 9/11. So if you're to use the authorization to use military force, if you're to look at the language, well, the language says that we are in violation. We're in violation of that law. McCain was given money to Al-Qaeda. The white hats in Syria have ties to Al-Qaeda. Now, I actually heard that ISIS and Al-Qaeda have divorced. And that's why Obama was trying to get another authorization to use force to go against ISIS. So that way you actually have a declaration to go against specifically ISIS. Now, they're terrorists, and so it seems like anything that just happens to fall in the realm of terrorism, we're supposed to assume that Trump knows what the fuck he's doing, right? He's not just opening up markets in these 33 different shadow wars in Africa for his hotels. I'm sure he's not just in there trying to enrich himself. I'm sure he doesn't do like con jobs and shit just to, get as much fucking money into his pocket. This guy's a crook, plutocrat, a one percenter. He is, trust him, and then he is giving all the power to the generals. He's just saying, okay, let the generals make their own decisions and see what the fuck is going on. So he is empowering rogue mercenaries going all across the world doing their own objectives. Huh? So that's what the fuck America's about now. There's some asshole in fucking Uganda who's got some power, and that asshole in Uganda knows that there's no oversight over him whatsoever. So if he starts going around doing some corrupt shit and his men start, let's say there's been rapes that have happened in the military, they start raping the villagers, right? Let's say they go rob some rich people and take all their wealth. Let's say they do some criminal shit. And then that's supposed to be done in my name, right? That's supposed to make me safer as an American by killing the, Nelson Mandelas of the world. That doesn't help me. That makes terrorism increase. That makes my life less safe, and it makes this world more dangerous. That doesn't help. And it's only a fucking matter of time. We keep bombing the fucking world that we're gonna get it bombed back. And the only way a war wins is if we win or they lose, right? That's all. There's the two options. I guess it could be a tie, right, or everybody dies. So that's a stalemate where we all live, or a stalemate where we all are dead. So those seem to be the outcomes of what war happens. Here's a war, so either we win or we lose. And so I as an American, I want to know what the fuck is going on. Trump is this military guy. I don't tell my plans. I don't say what the fuck is going on. The CIA is paying the Washington Post in order to put out propaganda pieces. So we don't even know what is, what happened in these attacks and what didn't happen. They don't talk to the media. They don't tell us what is going on. We don't know what the objectives are. We don't know how long we're going to be in this. This is how Vietnam started. First, Eisenhower just sprinkled a couple troops into Vietnam, and then Truman, and then JFK finally attacked them overtly, and then LBJ was escalating the shit out of it. But it never became a war, right? Because we never got a declaration of war. It was just a conflict, a 20 fucking year conflict. And we're brushing up. Again, this is just like Vietnam, but we're starting 33 Vietnams right now in Africa. 33 more Vietnams. We got 900 military bases in 150 countries. It seems like we're just trying to profit off of war and death and misery. Meanwhile, China and Russia are, working on their Germany and Brazil, they're working on their economies, and they're slowly going to take us over. We're, the world's policemen, so we got to finance all the fucking bullshit, all these bases, all these weapons, NATO, and, all of it, every bit of it. So, and for the people that say, but Pence, so we have a warmonger at the helm, Impeach one for his fucking war crimes. And then if Pence does it, then that means the Republican Party is done. We just impeached 2 fucking Republican presidents for war crimes. War is over, the war machine's done, and the Republican Party is done. That would be the best case scenario. The worst case scenario, Pence gets in there and he's this wonderful, spectacular leader. He's got the Congress to deal with. He has to pick up the pieces after his predecessor just got kicked out, which Gerald Ford wasn't able to do. And then ultimately we're going to get the Democrat. We're going to get whoever. Here's another last thing I'm going to end off on is I've been using Bernie Sanders essentially as a placeholder. So for the next radical progressive person. So in 2020, I'm not for sure if we'll have any of these people. Gary Johnson, Donald Trump, Jill Stein, Hillary Clinton. These, were very old fucking people. They're all in their 70s. I think Gary Johnson was the youngest. He was 67 or some shit. They are very old people. 80. Bernie Sanders is going to be pushing up against 80. How long do humans live for? How long? What's their longevity? 76 is the average. So if they're pushing 80, I know they got better medicine and they got universal health care and shit. But I don't know. I don't see any of these folks being around for 2020. I don't see any of them being around for 2020. So I think we're going to see a brand new slate of people. Or you're going to see something like Bernie Sanders in Tulsi. So old man Bernie, he can get in there. But if something does happen, we got a Tulsi or some very progressive person. That would give me some comfort. A young, vibrant progressive as the VP. If any of these old people want to, go ahead and, throw their hat in the ring. And then also, when Trump gets impeached, that's the day you declare your candidacy. That's the fucking day. Tulsi Gabbard, I'm using her as a placeholder too. I don't, in terms of progressives, I don't know too many nationally known. I know Tulsi, she's out of Hawaii, and she stood up for Bernie when nobody else was standing up for Bernie. So she's a fucking badass. And that's really all I know about her. So I assume a lot of her policies, she's a progressive like Bernie, and I would trust that ticket, Bernie and Tulsi. So yeah, whoever the next progressive is in 2020, we will get a progressive Democrat probably, but let's get a progressive Democrat. Let's fucking get progressive Democrats in there. Green Party would be my dream. Green Party would be my dream. That's where we're at. That's what we need. We need to build these localized, systems and then apply them as we see fit. So, John Masters, first video with this cheese recorder here. I hope it turned out alright. 18 minutes. Fuck, did y'all watch the whole thing? Thank you if you did. Thank you. I watched this over and over again because I know that these are very informative and very smart pieces, and it's how you learn. And I trust myself, right? If you can't trust anybody else, you should be able to trust yourself. Okay. Peace.